well, thank you guys for inviting me to talk here. Jesse, thank you very much. You know, Jesse is the founding father for robotic plastic surgery, and I'm only dragging on his coattails here just a little bit in some of the work we've done. But some we talk about competency, and I think that's a very difficult question and very difficult answer, and that is, how do you develop competency for surgeries that have never been done before? And that's kind of, we're in this quagmire now, I think, of trying to work out some of that with the hospital systems. I think I got very lucky with mine, as I was previously part of an independent hospital system, but now I'm a Cleveland Clinic doc, and the rules have changed in the governance. And so developing competency in these particular type of surgeries that, again, have never been done before is very, very difficult, because you really have to jump through a lot of hoops. And maybe, Jesse, you can speak to some of that yourself. But let me just run you real quick through some of the stuff that we've done, and just to let you know what Jesse, when you saw those photographs in movies of Jesse, what he did with latissimus, one would think, okay, well, that's a relatively large incision there, and you know, why would you need a robot? But to drill down just a little bit more, the actual physics behind it, that when you have a visualization, you really only see kind of what we call the event horizon, and you really need to get over that side of the chest wall and almost down to the spinous process, and that can only be done through the robot. You simply can't leverage enough to turn that over and get enough visualization for the whole playing field, just through one or two retractors. And so that's where you look at that and say, well, that seems really silly. Why would you want to use a robot for that? Well, it's almost mandated by what we call that event horizon, getting over top of the apex of the ribs and looking back down onto the spine itself. So when you see that, maybe the explanation that you look and say, okay, well, that seems silly, is really just a matter of mechanics and visualization behind everything. And that's really kind of the impetus for what we decided to do here with this rectus. And the wonderful thing is, when you see that, we're using this particular tool now. We're actually using gravity as another tool to operate with, which is kind of an unusual thought. But I don't need to belabor the point of how we set these up. But one of the things is, when you look at this particular surgery of how we did the rectus, we actually took the rectus muscle itself from inside the belly and then externalized it to obviate some of the obvious complications you can get from very long incision and violating the anterrectus sheath. But as we're all plastic surgeons, many of us are boarded both in gen surg and in plastics, and again, we get into this kind of murky waters about who does what. And for political sake, we asked the general surgeon to help enter the abdomen, if you will, and drop that the CO2 inside there, so that we can start the surgery. So here's a gen surg getting inside the belly for us for the politics of the whole scenario. And we're docking it here. And fortunately for me, when I started and I asked them, you know, can I do this? And they said, well, yeah, it's certainly no problem. Robot's just another retractor, another cautery, it's just another tool. Go ahead and use it as you see fit. But I think of this as something totally different. The robot is a new way to look at how we do work. And really, we should be looking at new surgeries developed, not revisiting surgeries. And I think this, with latissimus and the rectus, really kind of helps us get that in the back of our mind as we move forward then. So the background for this is, you know, we really like to cover some large tissue defects that we have. Really completely eliminates much of the donor defects that you see. And it actually, time-wise, it's equivocal in terms of time, including the setup nowadays. And really eliminates, if not reduces, complete hernia formation. We have not seen one yet. So the way this whole scenario went was, I kind of thought of this whole thing and contacted Sunnyvale, California. There's a very lovely gal out there, Catherine Moore, who was in charge of the research element, at least at the time was, who's actually done a number of TED Talks. Very bright gal, very interesting gal. She said, yeah, come on out and let's try some cadavers out there, because it's never been done before. But so I flew out, then Jesse flew out, and then we did it together. And the funny thing was, of course, the cadavers that we had inguinal hernias with meshes, so that made it more challenging, which is even better for us, naturally. And then finally just took that back and said to my hospitalist, I think I'm ready for this. Let's go ahead and do this. And we found our first patient to work this up with. But the advantages of the robots in this particular case is really you don't violate the anti-rectus sheath whatsoever. You certainly see the entire breadth of the muscle. As a matter of fact, you'll see here in a quick video that we're actually up and over the rib cage. So we're harvesting much more you can ever harvest otherwise without a very large incision. Average time is about an hour and a half or so. It requires 3 arms and just one doc to do this whole thing. So the first case is the case that Jesse showed you right quick, is the marathon runner we had, a young gal who actually went through a series of medical issues, ended up needing some coverage over top of her knee, therefore couldn't otherwise be utilized some other soft tissues, so we chose this as a method, and we tried to dumb this down, kind of an Apple-like method of doing it, just 3 ports, very simple, and we're using the left side because the falciform ligament kind of gets in the way, otherwise we'd go from try to harvest the right side. We kind of worked it out in the lab in California. But here's just a kind of another quick view of how we do this, and this is the posterior rectus sheath, and I want you to see real quick then how when we lift this up, this loose areolar tissue here just kind of falls down, and it really makes quite an easy dissection. We reflect that down, and then we actually go from the medial aspect to start lowering that muscle using gravity to our advantage to have the hammock effect of that muscle. And now we can more adequately deal with the inscriptions, and of course that's always one of those very nuanced things that you don't want to violate the anti-rectus sheath when you do that otherwise. So here we are kind of taking down the inscription on the other side and simply just cauterize right across it, and with no problems whatsoever. And I think when you look at kind of the magic behind doing this is that all you really have to do is, now this is with the old one, you had to adjust your arms just a little bit, but when you look farther up north or cephalad, here's the intercostal perforator, just ligation of that. There we are, way above the ribs, way the heck up there, which you simply couldn't do otherwise without a large incision. And of course, Jesse adequately saw you the dissection of the deep inferior gastric vessels themselves, which is a fairly easy segment to do. And here we are through a little teeny incision. There's our entire breadth of the muscle itself without violating the belly wall. And here it is here again, 3 simple ports, a camera, a cautery, and a pickup, and that's it. Very eloquent, very easy to do. Doesn't take that much longer. The one thing we didn't talk about and I won't talk about is actually we use the robot again to do the anastomosis here. Again, that's this harvest using the robot and then anastomosis using the robot, which we've seen all day today. No reason to kind of go through that again. But here's kind of this is 1 month afterwards. And again, this is this photograph. I think it's the only photograph I've known showing rectus removed from inside and yet still seeing the inscriptions. It almost looks ghost-like in a way. But it's really interesting to see that. Now we have nearly a 5-year follow-up of this young gal. Isn't that interesting here? And this is actually the left side. Look at this silhouette there at all. And really no hernia formation, no diastasis, no nothing whatsoever. And I think if there was an example here, her BMI was next to nothing. This is the primary example you can use. And I'll show you another case real quick about a Sherpa who's since lost his Sherpa-like silhouette. But anyway, we've done several of these today, and this is almost about a 5-year follow-up on this gal. Look at that. You still can't see anything any different on there. So I think this was a win-win for everybody when you need these very large soft tissue constructs. So again, for an older man, a Sherpa, and I'm not certain why a Sherpa would come to Cleveland, Ohio, but here he is. And taking out the muscle there, and again, now we've modified our incision here, just go suprapubic to remove that, and here we are post-op, simply, and again, more of an android shape to him, but one would think with this type of intra-abdominal pressure that you would see a magnitude larger of the defects, perhaps as a diastasis of some sort, but it's simply not there whatsoever. So far to date, we've actually done almost 10 of these things now. So we've done quite well with them. We've had no complications so far, knock on wood. But what's the future here? I think the dual plane, spelling errors, but I mean, I think the dual plane deep is one that should be looked at because of the timing issue. When you go from the root of the tree up, it makes a lot more sense, and you can actually see the blood vessels split and quite readily go right through the anteroctus sheath. You can actually go and tease that whole thing away, as I've tried, and then basically go from outside then and just open up a little bit of that fascia, and boom, there's your dissection already completed, but most of it done through the belly. And then I think the next thing obviously is to do some micro transplants in the belly, because the robot in the belly is very easy to work with. It's all been mapped out before. Now we're just waiting for the right person and the right case to do some transplants intra-abdominally. So for brevity's sake, that's about it today for this segment of the talk. Is there any questions I can entertain?